Hey guys, and so we're back. Continuing our story of George Washington, and today one of your assignments is to give me one fact from the story. So you really have to be paying attention to the story, okay? So here we go. For some years now, French soldiers have been coming from Canada down the Ohio River. They built fortresses and made friends with many Indian tribes, and with the Indians they were chasing away the Virginia backwoodsmen. The governor sent for George Washington, for he had heard about his courage and his skill. He wanted him to try to push his way through the wilderness and take a message to the French commander asking the French to leave the Virginians in peace. With a few men, George Washington set off at once. He dodged many perils until deep in the wilderness he met Half King, an Indian chief. They became such good friends that Half King and his braves led George Washington and his men on hidden trails until they came to some log houses surrounded by a strong wooden fence. That was the French fortress. Late in the fall, George Washington came back to Williamsburg, where the governor of Virginia lived in a palace. George was worn and tired. Hostile Indians had attacked him, and he had almost drowned in an icy river. But he had come through all the dangers and returned with the French commander's answer. The governor received him in his beautiful palace and could not praise him enough. He gave him a higher rank in the army, and the young George Washington was honored by everyone in Virginia. At the gates of the governor's palace, the great and the small stood to bow and to greet him. But from the message he had brought back, it was easy to see that the French wanted part of Virginia. So the governor gave George Washington several hundred soldiers and sent him out to keep the French and the Indians away. For 4 years, George Washington fought. Valiantly, he defended the backwoodsmen and their wives and their children against the Indian raids. The English king sent great army to chase away the French soldiers and the Indian tribes. In a straight line, the red-coated English soldiers marched into the wilderness. George Washington told them they ought to hide themselves behind trees and bushes instead of marching that way. But they would not listen. So when the Indian warriors fell upon them from the hiding places behind the trees, the whole army was beaten. George Washington's coat was pierced by many bullets, but he was unharmed. Later, the English king sent a still bigger army, and together with George Washington and the other Virginians, the English soldiers succeeded in chasing away the French and the Indian tribes, and they never came back. Now, George Washington was a hero of all Virginia. The house was always full of guests. There were many children and parties, but there was also some serious men who came to talk with Washington. They talked about the difficulties the colonies had had with their mother country, England. England was so far away that the English king could not know how different things were in the American colonies. Then everybody in the 13th American colonies grew so angry that they made up their minds to fight together against the Redcoats. This ends our story for today. So I'm hoping that you might have to go back and listen to it again, but you're just going to give me one fun fact from the story. And you can either draw it out or you can write it out, whatever's easier for you. I'll talk to you soon.